Hey there everyone, I'm Don, Professor Goway, and welcome to the Industry Insiders webinar. Hear from expert guests including conservationists, explorers, tourism professionals, and everyday globetrotters to discover fascinating stories in the world of travel and be inspired to travel far and travel often. Inspire, motivate, and educate. Goway Pro Industry Insider webinar. Today I'd like to welcome Hilary Nguyen. Close?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, that's good. Hilary is from the... Let me clarify something. Do we refer to South Korea as Korea or South Korea? Does it...
Either
or? There's no technical...
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we say Korea, it's a little shorter than South Korea, but obviously we're the South Korea Tourism Board, but we do just call it Korea. It's just faster and a little snappier than saying South Korea every single time.
Okay, so for the sake of today, we will refer to South Korea as Korea, acknowledging there is a North and a South. Mm-hmm. So... Hilary, what is your position here? So you're based in Toronto, and you're from the Korea Tourism Board. So what's your role there? Because what we like to do is get to know who our guest is, apart from the professional side. So what's your background professionally and, I guess, personally in regards to Korea?
So I'm the marketing manager at the Korea Tourism Organization Toronto office. So of course, we're the official tourism board. We are here to promote Korea as a world-class destination for travelers all over the globe. And we are a non-profit organization. So our Toronto branch office, of course, focuses on Canada. Mm-hmm. We have branch offices all over the world too. We have 2 offices in the US as well, in New York and LA.
New York, LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're a global organization, and of course, our goal is to, raise awareness and promote Korean culture. And, a lot of people, of course, know about Korea for K-pop and K-dramas, but there's also lots of, different cultural sites and history and, museums, food, all sorts of stuff that travelers can come to visit for.
Which we'll delve into a bit in a minute. Are you from Korea?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm Vietnamese, actually.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people, the surname can give it away, but some people, of course, think I might be Korean because I work at the tourism board. But yes, I'm actually Vietnamese. Although I grew up with a lot of Korean friends, so I actually know quite a bit from them. I've always loved the country. So
again, we mentioned earlier, we're going to refer to South Korea as Korea. There are 2. What's the quick synopsis of the history of Korea as when it was unified at one stage, correct?
Yes, and then of course there's, war.
When did it split? It split post-Second World War when China got involved, and then World War II led into the Korean War, which is very general terms here, a war between communist-backed North and, I guess, US-backed South. Mm-hmm. And it came officially the war's not over. They never declared it over. It's still technically going.
There's an armistice, there's peace talks, so there's an agreement. But yes, it could definitely be a little dicey at times. The 2 countries are officially separated. Yep. So, North and South Korea, when we refer to Korea, I get this all the time. You mean South? Is it South? Is it North? I get that all the time when we do consumer shows and things like that because, everyone knows North Korea, everyone knows South Korea, and everyone knows there is a big cultural divide. The war, of course, was a huge part of that. But actually, the DMZ is actually open for tours. So that's something that's really popular.
You can actually visit the DMZ?
Yeah, so the DMZ, which for those of you who don't know, is the demilitarized zone. It's basically running along the border of North and South Korea.
So we're going here onto the actual line to go into North Korea, and I actually have to walk this way. We can't shoot left, we can't shoot right, we can only shoot forward. There's a lot of restrictions on our cameras, but to get here we had to go through 3 checkpoints. We passed some anti-tank explosives, and now we're about to go into these blue rooms and into the North Korean line. So the North Koreans and the South Koreans still meet in this room?
Yes, the last known visit was 2008.
Literally these microphones on the table are what defines the line. So North Korea on this side, South Korea on that side. It seems so easy, it's just one step. But when you think about all of the militarization and what you go through and the barbed wire, it's certainly far from easy.
It's actually been a very popular place for people to visit. Now, in order to visit it, you do need to book an actual tour. You can't just go alone. You have to book. But there's many agencies that offer DMZ tours. Even the airport, actually, International Airport, actually also runs tours to the DMZ too. So it's easy to do it. You need to bring your passport as well. So there are like certain guidelines, and that's been popular, especially amongst history lovers.
I'm one of them. That's why I sort of wanted to start this off with just a very brief synopsis of why there is a north and a south, then, as we discussed.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going like all over.
That's right. No, that's fine.
I'm just I always go straight into tourism.
That's fine. No, right, because I was going to ask, can you actually visit the DMZ?
Yeah, I mean,
answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there are some tours available. There's certain opportunities where you could visit the north as well, but it is a very different experience. It's not somewhere that you can just book your flight and go, and it's very limited to the things that you can do there. And obviously there are press opportunities and things like that. But the DMZ is popular because there is that air of mystique and people are curious about it. And this is probably one of the most unique things that you can do in Korea. I mean, you can't just do that anywhere else in the world. I always say, of course you can go, there's great hikes in Korea, there's great food in Korea, but I mean, there's great food and hikes in many different countries.
But there's nowhere else is there probably a DMZ like there is between the north and the south.
So it actually became very popular because of that. And actually, sorry, maybe I'm going a little more into it.
That's what we're here. We're here to learn.
Yeah, some people also don't know there's a lot of wildlife up there. So some nature lovers also like to visit it for that. But primarily people like to visit because of the history, the kind of, again, that, I guess, mystique around, the area, and because it's such a unique type of experience. But yeah, definitely history lovers really, really are interested in it. Right.
And for those out there, we don't, as in Goway doesn't deal with any tourism to North Korea at this stage either. So just for clarity's sake there. So I've been lucky enough to travel quite extensively in the world. Asia in my younger years. I was in Thailand last year, but I've never been to Korea. So today, for my benefit as well as everyone out there listening, we're going to go through some basic stuff of Korea. So I guess the most obvious one is, where is it?
Okay, so Korea, South Korea, and North Korea. So it's Northeast Asia. So bordering countries are China and, of course, Japan are very close neighbors. It's East Asia, we refer to it as, but it's technically in the northern part.
So the land border is China.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Japan is an island, but
and the ocean border, or closest other country is Japan.
Yeah, and South Korea is very coastal as well, so it's almost
Does South Korea
a peninsula.
Have a beach?
Yes,
culture? It does.
Yeah, many beaches. I mean, because the whole coastline, especially the East Coast, is where I would say like the more famous beaches are. But there are also beaches.
So would someone look at? Again, it's probably not the top of the list, and I wouldn't go to Korea for the beach, particularly when you have Thailand and everything else around it.
Yeah.
But having said that, if you were to spend, let's say, 10 days looking at all the other stuff of Korea, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then wanted some downtime, is Korea set up for like beach resort type?
Oh, yeah.
It is, okay.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of like, more like rest and relax and resort, Jeju is probably the place to go. So Jeju Island is the largest island in South Korea. It's located towards the south of the peninsula. It's a really beautiful place. It's really well known for its beaches. There's also a national park there called Halasan National Park. That's where the largest mountain in Korea is, which is Mount Halasan.
Which you can summit or climb?
Yeah. You can do hikes. You can do day hikes. And at the top there's a crater lake, so it's really beautiful. You're like in the clouds, nice. So it's a really nice view. So, and people even hike there in the winter, and Koreans are serious about hiking actually. Right. Like especially like the older generation too. You always see like the older like grandpas and grandmas like hiking, getting, especially in Seoul too. I mean, I'm going all over the place.
That's right.
But hiking is big. But sorry, we're talking about beaches.
Well, okay, I want to jump back one step though on this island. What was the island's name again?
It's Jeju Island.
So how do you get from the mainland to Jeju Island?
You can fly.
Can you boat or ferry or otherwise?
Yes. You could also take a ferry. Flight is honestly a lot faster and easier. It's just an hour flight. Okay. So
and that would be from the capital, which is?
Seoul. But the airport is in Incheon. So from Incheon to Seoul, you could just subway. There's also like limousine buses. There's a fast train service called RX as well. There's many different ways, but honestly, you could just subway, or take a bus, whatever, however is easier for you. Taxi, of course. But most people would fly from Incheon because most people come to Seoul first, and then they do a little, vacation, and then go to Jeju from there. I mean, of course, if you've been to South Korea a few times, maybe you just might want to go straight to Jeju. So you could just basically book a connection. But Jeju is one of the best places for beaches, and just generally, if you're into nature, there's lots of scenic views, and it's just a little bit of a different experience from the big city. As you can imagine, it's an island, so it's a little bit more like rest and relaxation. There's lots of resorts there. But other beaches are popular in Busan as well. So Busan is the second largest city in Korea. It's, again, located more towards the south. So Seoul, the capital, and Incheon are in the northern part of South Korea. And Busan is more towards the southeast, and it's right on the coast. So
I'll be throwing up some maps over this so people understand what we're talking about.
That'll be awesome. So Seoul is technically like inland. It's quite Incheon is an island, so it's also on the coast. But Busan is right on the coast, so it's got two really beautiful beaches. One is Haeundae Beach, and the other is Kwangali Beach. So those are both very popular, especially in the summer. It gets pretty hot and pretty humid, so a lot of people like to go to the beach.
That's my other question. So it is warm as well if you're looking at beach time.
Yes, summer, although it can be very humid. So unless you are, really looking for like that hot weather, the temperatures are a little bit more mild in the spring and in the fall. But for Canadians and some Americans, depending on where you are, the good thing is that it's a 4-season country, very similar to most places in Canada and US. So it's kind of easy for travelers to kind of adjust to the temperatures. But I will say summer does tend to be quite humid. It can get pretty hot as well. The fall and the springtime, as I said, it's a little bit more mild. So those are some popular times. But summer is still peak high demand. And then in the winter, it does snow. It gets pretty cold. You could ski. A lot of people probably know we held the 2018 Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. So of course there's great ski and snowboarding infrastructure if you're like looking for a winter getaway. And winter hiking is also really popular as well. So even in Jeju, I know a lot of people do like winter hiking on Mount Halasan, but I mean, there's mountains like all over Korea. Korea's actually like about 70% mountainous terrain.
Oh, really?
So that's why hiking is like so popular. And that's also one of the beautiful things, because even, when you're just looking at the skyline, especially like in Busan, it has such a beautiful skyline because you have the beach and the mountains. But from a lot of places, you can, if you're, going to like a viewpoint somewhere, like especially, in a big city, if you go to like some observatory or things like that. So in Seoul, there's like Seoul Sky, which is a big observatory. Like you can see, of course, all the, skyscrapers and different buildings and cityscape, but then there's also like the mountains in the background, which is really beautiful. And it's quite a different mountain view, I would say, than places in Canada or in the US. Here we have the Rockies in Canada. It's definitely like a different type of atmosphere. It's sort of like, it almost looks like rolling hills, so it's really, really beautiful.
Well, again, you've answered about 10 questions I had for you.
I talk too much.
So, no, that's right. Just to recap. So what Hilary pointed out there was summer. So South Korea, or Korea, is north of the equator, so it's the same summer, season-wise? Months-wise?
Yeah.
Okay, so summer is high season. Fall or spring will obviously be shoulder season and beautiful to travel in from a temperature point of view. And winter, while it will naturally be colder, you can ski if you're looking for that. So there's...
skiing, skating.
So it's a full-season destination.
Many different things to do.
Okay, so you've mentioned Incheon, Seoul, and Busan. So getting to Korea from North America.
Yes.
Are all those gateways, or is it just Seoul? Or Incheon, technically?
Technically. I mean, we use it interchangeably because the cities are. It's like an hour to get there. It's pretty close. It's sort of like going to Pearson from Toronto. I'm sorry, I'm using Toronto as a reference.
Okay, so let's go JFK from Manhattan.
Yeah,
So,
JFK, you can, I mean, there's domestic airports as well, so you can obviously fly to different cities, but yes, like from an international standpoint, the gateway is Incheon International.
And do you know the airport code? I'll put it up if you don't. ICN, okay.
Yes, Incheon.
So you'd fly into Incheon, and you mentioned before when talking about how to get to the island that there are subway access into Seoul.
Yes.
Of course, Goway would set you up with a private guided transfer from the airport, our recommendation. But if you wanted to be more independent, so there's obviously taxis, there's limo services, there's the subway you mentioned. And of course, services arranged by Goway as well. And we always recommend that you do that on arrival into any foreign country, at least on the first time. If you then feel comfortable, traveling on your own, then, as Hilary mentioned, all these other aspects. Are there any entry requirements for a US or Canadian traveller into Korea, visas or otherwise?
The good thing is, right now this year, very easy to go for both Canadians and Americans. You just need your passport. You normally would need an ETA, which is an electronic travel authorization. It's basically like a substitute for a visa that's a lot easier.
And they're generally like the Australian one. They're just done online.
Almost
instantaneous.
It's not too difficult, but makes it easier. You don't need one this year until the end of 2024.
And why not now, but end of this year?
Because 2023 and 2024 has been designated as Visit Korea Year by the Korean government. So basically the Visit Korea Year campaign is, of course, all about promoting travel and tourism to South Korea. So we've been doing like many different types of promotions as part of this. We've been doing campaigns like all throughout last year and this year on various different topics. Like, there's like something called the K-pop playground going on, where there's all these sorts of K-pop activations at different festivals, like all the way from May to September. So there's, many different things we do, like discounts and contests and things like that around the Visit Korea Year.
If and when they reinstate that, the ETA, is there a cost to that? Or wait, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Was there a cost to an ETA?
Yes, there was. I would think in the future there would be as well. It's not that expensive, but...
Which was what, $25, something like that?
To be honest, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, again, I'll look it up and we'll throw it up on the screen.
Yeah.
So again, what we're throwing up is what it was. Hilary and I would guess it. There will be a charge if they reintroduce it.
Yeah.
So cost to be determined going forward, but yeah. So you've already mentioned quite a few things. So my general question to you is, why South Korea? Now, you've mentioned a ton of stuff already, but let's be a bit more specific about it. So,
sure.
In that region, there's a wide choice. There's Japan, obviously. There's Korea we're talking about. You've got Thailand, all these other equally famous, more famous, however you want to look at it, countries. So what would you pitch to me to sway me to Korea over one of the neighboring destinations?
Good question. I think every country has its unique charms and attractions, and every country is worth visiting for sure. And of course, Korea has tough competition because Asia has so many beautiful countries, like you said.
And of course, Vietnam.
Yeah.
Vietnam. Can't forget Vietnam.
No, I'm not here to rep countries. Please visit Korea. No, I would say like Korea has so many different things that you can do. And I think it has a lot of very unique attractions. Of course, the DMZ is one of them. And of course, another one is like the K-pop and K-dramas. I think that's a huge draw as well.
We'll get into that in a minute. Just
so many questions.
If people don't understand that, because I'm one of them, I think I know what it is, but I don't understand it. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I'll give you the 101.
Yeah.
But yeah, Korea has so many different things that you can do, not just, DMZ and K-pop, but also there's so much culture and history. Of course, every country has its, beautiful places to visit, but I think the nice thing about Korea is you can do so many different things. You can, go to the street markets, have some delicious food. You can, you okay? There's like outdoor adventure. You can go for incredible hikes. You can bike all the way from Seoul to Busan.
Okay. Let's turn this around. So you can bike, you can hike, water activities, kayaking, sailing, surfing. Okay,
yeah,
there's no one.
Surfing is big, yeah.
Okay, we touched on skiing, which entails all those disciplines. The cultural aspect you mentioned. In Japan, obviously the culture, around the, I know this is not the right terminology, and I've forgotten the geishas, which is not how you refer to them anymore. But there's that very ancient culture, which I know South Korea has as well. The cultural immersion aspects when visiting, is it in your face? Is it something you have to look for? Because Korea is also very, very modern. It's one of the biggest manufacturers of electronics and motor vehicles, so it's got definitely the new, modern. Is the old Korea on display?
Yes, actually, that's another really beautiful thing about Korea. So even in Seoul, there's a good mix of, really modern and then also really beautiful and traditional as well. So you have, there's 5 major palaces in Seoul. So those all of course have beautiful traditional Korean architecture. There's also many different hanoks. So hanok is the word for like a traditional Korean house with the beautiful roof and beautiful interior. So there's actually like quite a lot of places where you can see hanoks. There's the Bukchon Hanok Village, which is a really popular spot in Seoul,
so
for
with the
example.
Hanok, are they something like you can, like, are they also are they an accommodation choice?
Yes,
right.
Yeah. So we call it the Hanok stay. So you can book one instead of a hotel. But there's also, so you can book a Hanok to stay with a more traditional interior. It's got like more of a roll-out bed. It's as opposed to like something more like Western style. But you can also book like Western style accommodations inside. So the facilities are maybe more what North Americans would be used to at hotels like across Canada and US in terms of like Western style beds and things like that, but it's still inside of a hanok. So you have this beautiful architecture and it's, kind of a nice cultural immersion experience.
It's a Korean experience with Western beds, or you can go for the full Korean experience with the roll beds and...
Yeah. So it's like basically the amenities look a little different on the inside, but the outside's still a really traditional house. But also another really popular thing for like cultural immersion is like hanbok rental. So a hanbok is like the traditional Korean clothing. So it's, traditionally like quite a long gown. So like tourists and locals too, even
worn by men and
women. Okay. Yeah, the men's version looks a little different, but yeah, it's still that
it's
kind of long,
the same look.
Flowing, very sort of regal feeling outfit. Yeah, so it's really popular for tourists to kind of rent those. There's hanbok rental shops at a lot of bigger tourist areas because that's where a lot of people like to rent and then take photos. So for example, at Gyeongbokgung, which is like the largest palace from the Joseon dynasty, it's like the largest and oldest and one of the most popular tourist attractions in Seoul. There's many hanbok rental shops there, and you can rent a hanbok, go and like roam around the palace grounds. So that's fun.
How do you spell that?
Hanbok.
Oh, right. So
hanbok. Yeah, hanbok.
Okay. So for a Westerner to rent that and wear that, that's not appropriation anyway. It's not. It's encouraged, or not encouraged, but it's not frowned upon if a Westerner does.
No, like absolutely not. I mean, I think cultural appropriation can be obviously a fine line, but I think people who are like, not treating it as, just like some sort of costume and kind of just doing it to appreciate the culture and kind of immerse themselves. No, it's totally welcome. There's tons of shops. Like anyone is free to rent one. And actually at Gyeongbok Palace or Gyeongbokgung, you get free entry if you rent a hanbok.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I mean, I will say the entry fee to get in there is actually cheaper than renting a hanbok.
Okay.
But a lot of people like to do it for just the just for fun. And it's, something to do.
Again, just as long as it's not frowned upon. And
I
agree.
I
think embracing and looking at and experience someone else's culture, if it's done with respect, it's not appropriation. It's a way to learn and appreciate and respect.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that because
absolutely, it's a good question. A lot of people might wonder.
Yeah. Okay. So how big is Korea?
So it's
talking southern.
So it's about 51 million people. Seoul is about over 9 million. So
big city,
that's the major concentration for sure. It's definitely the biggest city.
So getting around the country, this will lead back into sort of like a best of itinerary. But if you want to get, say, you come into Incheon, you then spend a couple of nights in Seoul, getting around to the big sites or areas in Korea, flying would be the easiest, best way to do it.
To Jeju, because it's an island, but I would say you don't need to fly to the other city. You can for sure, but I think it's actually a little bit easier to just use the high-speed rail. So
Well, that's my next question.
Yes.
Is there a high-speed rail similar to what you would
Yeah.
experience in Japan? That
Yeah. So high-speed rail around like 300 kilometers an hour.
That's high speed.
It's high speed.
Yeah, that
It's
is, yeah.
very good service too. It's very reliable, always on time, and easy to book. So yeah, I would say that's probably the easiest way. Of course, you could still fly, but train is always a little bit easier, and it's
Yeah.
very fast. So like probably one of the furthest distances that you could take the train is Seoul to Busan. So that's like 2.5 hours.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah, and it's
And that's the longest train
across-
travel
it's-
distance.
Yeah, I mean in terms of major cities
yeah,
that
of
you would
course, yeah,
actually,
yeah.
So yeah, so for reference, the high speed rail train. There's the KTX is the most popular one. There's also like regular train service, but I mean if you could take the high speed rail train, I would definitely recommend it because it is a lot faster and it's easy.
So within those trains, is it like a first, second, third class options within? So if you want to go in style, you can, or just
Yeah, you can book business class as
business
well,
class, okay.
For a premium, and you can take your luggage on board. So yeah.
So if Goway was to book someone's train tickets, which we can do for them, which is a smart way to get around the country, we would have a guide take them to the train station and get them on board. So in respect to getting around the country, from a language point of view, if someone doesn't speak any form of Korean, are they going to be cut off once they sort of left alone, or is there enough English-speaking people and or English signage around for someone to find the train station, get on the train, get off in Busan, and then get to the hotel unassisted? It's easy from that respect. Language?
The great thing is there is signage in English in like the subways and the train stations in major cities, so that makes it really, really easy. In Seoul too, if you're taking the subway, they even announce the stops in English. But I mean, obviously the names are still Korean.
Yeah.
But you can see the like English alphabet. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because obviously a lot of people cannot read Hangul, which is the Korean alphabet. So it's in Hangul, it's in like English alphabet, and they announce it as well in both English and Korean, and that makes it fairly
Easy.
simple. I would say also, if you're going to restaurants or shops, a lot of people in Seoul do speak English, so that makes it easier.
Now that's in Seoul. What about, say, Busan, or now that's the second largest city, but what if you're off in
Jeju
smaller
or-
villages?
Yeah. So if you are in smaller, so Busan, a lot of people do speak English as well. It's definitely a little bit less than Seoul. So I would definitely recommend using translation apps. And I would say Jeju is sort of a similar level of, people can speak English, but it the smaller the cities, then
The less chance.
Yeah. So, and especially if you go to like smaller villages, yes, of course, like it's harder to find people that do speak English. In Seoul, it's super, super easy, and I would say Busan and Jeju are fairly easy as well, but not quite as.
Yep.
Of course, if you have things like Google Translate, you can use the dictation, but I also recommend an app called Papago. That's Papago, which is, I would say, a slightly more accurate translation for Korean. It's a Korean language app. So the good thing is you can, speak into it. It'll translate. You can take photos.
Yeah.
You can take photos of the Hangul and it will translate it into English. Now, of course,
really?
it might not be 100% accurate, but you get the gist,
But it's
right?
better than nothing.
Yeah, you get the gist. Okay, toilet. Okay.
So if you are traveling, say, off the beaten track or off the tourist track, I don't know this question. I'm assuming the answer in my head. Are Koreans friendly? So if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you don't speak English, and Korean, they don't speak English, they're going to help as much as they can. They're not going to ignore you, type of thing.
No. I would say Koreans in general are quite welcoming to foreigners and are like willing to help, especially when they can see you're clearly a tourist. You know what I mean?
Right,
You're walking around like, where am I? Yeah, I would say Korean people are quite hospitable, and like respect is a really big part of just Korean day-to-day culture, like respecting others. So I think people are, generally quite friendly. I mean, obviously if you're off the beaten track and you're in a smaller, town, they might not be able to speak English, but I would say if you have a translation app that you can like share with them and they can kind of read what you're saying, that does definitely help. And I've seen tourists do it a lot.
Okay. So we spoke about getting around the country, plane and train. Can you self-drive? Is it safe, easy to self-drive around Korea? Again, back to signage. There'll be enough signage in English. I guess Google Maps and everything else these days. Takes a lot of the guesswork out of it.
Yeah. So you could totally rent a car and drive. I mean, to be honest, in Seoul, I mean, it's a big city, so driving is not very fun.
I'm thinking more like if you wanted to drive from Seoul to Busan.
Oh, yeah, you definitely could. And it's popular, especially in Jeju. I think because, Jeju is a little bit more relaxed. It's an island. It's also popular to like rent a car there and just drive yourself around and explore the island. But I mean, people also rent taxis and do that too. So, or like if you're really outdoorsy, you could bike around the island. There's many different transportation options. But yeah, you could definitely rent a car.
Okay. We talked about the safety of Korea and getting around people helping you out. If you're a gay traveller, is Korea accepting of the gay community?
Yeah, I would say Korea is definitely more conservative than most major cities in Canada and the US. I mean, there are people who are a little bit more conservative everywhere you go, obviously. So I'm kind of speaking more big city. But people are still accepting, and there is even like pride festivals and things like that. So it's still safe for sure. But I will like be honest and say it can, like, some people can be a little bit conservative, but it's not dangerous at all.
I guess that's my biggest. Like, you can't change people's minds as long as a traveller of any description is going to feel safe in the country is what I'm really getting at.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Goway has one of the largest group departments in North America. So is Korea a good group travellers destination? So now a group to Goway is 10 or more, but we deal with people or groups of up to 100 or 200. So is one Korea, I think I know the answer, is Korea set up to handle big, large groups from a tourism point of view? And is it a good destination for groups?
Yeah, I would say definitely, especially because, my first thought is going to places like Korean barbecue is perfect for groups. It's actually hard to do with smaller, if you're just one or if you're just like two people, it actually can be a little bit more difficult because the serving sizes are built for like more people. That was the first thing I thought of. But it's definitely set up for groups, and there's like tons of like activities that people can do in groups, and like experiences, if you want to do like a cooking class or a K-pop dance class or karaoke, whatever you want to do. Like there's so many like fun group activities that you can do. So yes, and group tours is super popular. Group tours and private tours,
Okay, wonderful. Now you mentioned obviously, and again when the map went up, you would have seen that Korea, north and south, has a lot of coastline, and the island you've mentioned. So are there cruising options around South Korea, around the island, like to and from Japan even?
That's actually popular too. You could take a ferry from Japan to Korea, and and of course, because the countries are like very close, and for North Americans, it's a long haul flight, so lots of people like to do that. So that's really fun. Cruising, for sure. Busan is probably one that you see a lot on cruise itineraries, but all the like major cruise lines, Royal Caribbean, Carnival,
they all call in a Korea.
They have ports of call. And even Seoul it's still inland, but Incheon is a port itself. So some cruises do Seoul. Busan is pretty popular as well, and of course Jeju. But cruising from Korea to Japan is actually popular too.
Okay, so what Goway does as well for our cruise agents out there, we don't obviously book the big cruises that Hillary mentioned, like Carnival and whatnot, because we know you guys and girls out there do it better than we can. But what we can assist with is any shore excursions. So the port of call of Incheon, if someone wanted to get into Seoul for a day or a couple of days based on the cruise itinerary, Goway can help you out there, because if we're generally cheaper than the cruise lines and we pay your commission, it's worth remembering. So you mentioned the border with China, Japan literally being across the what's the sea separates Korea and Japan?
Oh, the East Sea?
Is it East Sea? Okay. Anyway, the sea that separates. Culturally, how different or how similar is Chinese to Korean, Korean to Japanese culture? Is there a similar? Because I know there's been a lot of intersecting history going way back when. But they are their own countries, their own distinct environments. But there's got to be some similarities, I would guess, as an outsider saying that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, like I said earlier, respect is a big part of Korean culture. I find that that's very true, of course, in Japan and China as well. I think that's East Asia and in Southeast Asia too, like respect, especially like respecting your elders or, you know what I mean? When you're meeting someone for the first time. One of the big things too is like bowing is very common.
Korea?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, here in North America, most people shake hands or even hug when they greet. Actually, that's a funny thing that I was talking about with our deputy director the other day, that here, hugging when you meet someone is super common. But in Korea, that's really like a personal thing that you just do with your super, super close friends and family. You don't really, it's more of it's a bow.
Okay, so let me interject then. So when you meet your guide, or you meet people as you're traveling, the way to greet them is with a bow.
Yeah. You don't have to do like a 90,
Right,
you can
just a little nod of the head type thing.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like if you're not bowing to people, a lot of people can tell you're a tourist anyway, so it's not disrespectful from, a foreigner perspective. Koreans, of course, understand cultural differences around the world, and especially like, for visitors. And if they can hear you're speaking another language, they can hear you speaking English, they're not going to be offended that you didn't bow when you greet them or anything like that. But the way that you greet people is just a short bow.
Again, most people out there, including myself, you obviously, as soon as you think of bowing, you think of Japan. I didn't realize that Korea.
Yeah, Korean.
There you go. There's a similar cultural connection.
Right?
Okay. So on the cultural point of view, I'm going to throw this one out there. One of the biggest famous ones for Japan is the cherry blossom season. What are the big cultural events in Korea that someone should gear an itinerary around or two?
Okay, so there's so many. The first one that comes to mind is Yeondeunghoe. So that is the Lotus Lantern Festival in Seoul.
Okay.
So that's one of the biggest and most beautiful festivals actually that happens. It's of course a lantern festival. So the date actually changes every year because it's based around Buddha's birthday. So the point of the celebration is to
celebrate Buddha.
Yeah, celebrate Buddha. And it goes off the lunar calendar. So for those of you who don't know, that's obviously the calendar based around the cycle of the moon. So when we use the Gregorian calendar, the date changes, but it's usually around mid-May every year. So it's this huge festival, and it starts off with like, tons of like lanterns obviously being displayed, and performances that go all down the street, and then they set up seats along like the major streets in Seoul, and the festival goes all the way down. Tons of like dancing, and it's really beautiful, and May is a great time, but also like temperature wise, the spring is
the springtime, of course.
But speaking of cherry blossoms, Korea also does have cherry blossoms as well.
There you go.
So in April, usually it kind of depends. Sometimes it could be late March is when they start, but usually around like early April is like the cherry blossom season every year. And there's a cherry blossom festival that happens, and there's a lot of different places that you can go to see cherry blossoms.
So here's an expert tip: cherry blossom season in Japan, particularly of late, it just sells out so quickly, and Japan has gone up in price. So here's a really good alternative for you: hit Korea for cherry blossom season. Any other cultural, or before I ask about other cultural events, you mentioned the lantern thing is based on Buddha's birthday. What is the main religion of Korea? Is it Buddhism?
It's actually not, but I mean, Buddhism was sort of like the foundation. So there's tons of different Buddhist temples, which is, still very, very popular tourist attraction. And locals, of course, do visit to pray. So like Buddhism is still an active religion in Korea, but the most popular religion technically is like Christianity.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. So even though, like, especially from a tourist perspective, like Buddhist temples are so popular because of the beautiful architecture, the culture, the history behind them, and also for most North Americans, it's quite different to anything you would see over in Canada or the U.S. So super, super popular, and there's a lot of beautiful temples. So sometimes people get the misconception that Buddhism is still the most popular, but it's like probably I think it's second up there. So
it's still very, very popular. Okay, so again, I didn't mean to take you off track there. So you mentioned the lantern festival and the cherry blossom season. Any other big cultural events that people should be aware of?
I mean, there's obviously a lot of different holidays and things like that, but from a tourist perspective, it's more so like festivals. So I would say there's again, the Cherry Blossom Festival. There's like the Namdo Food Festival, which happens around October. So yeah, there's quite a lot of different things that you can do.
You just, again, talking festivals, popped in my head. A big one worldwide is wine festivals. Does Korea have a wine industry or a beer industry for that matter? Is it like are Koreans not drinkers as in a bad way, but do they like their alcohol? Is it okay? So what's their favorite drink, if there is one? Is there something that's theirs?
Yeah, Korean drinking culture is actually huge. I don't know how up to date this information is, but I heard that Koreans are like the number 2 like drinkers in the world. I think it was Irish was the number 1, which probably
that's
makes
probably
sense,
right.
but I don't know. Don't quote me on it because that was just a stat I saw a long time ago. But I believe it because Korean drinking culture is big, and they like to work hard and of course party hard. But the most popular drink is soju, which is a Korean alcohol. It's very refreshing. I would say it's hard to describe. It's almost like a lighter and much more refreshing type of liquor. So maybe similar to a vodka, but much lighter, much more refreshing. You can mix it into drinks. You can drink it plain. There's there's tons of different flavors, and it usually comes in like a small like green bottle, a little bit bigger, I think, than your average beer bottle. But yes, there's a beer industry as well. Cass is like one of the most popular Korean beers. So there's lots of Korean branded beers. Right. Wine is popular too. I will say that like at most, if you're going to like a traditional Korean restaurant, if they serve alcohol, it's usually soju, and beer is probably the most second most popular. They don't always serve wine, but there's lots of wine bars. There's also lots of like Western style restaurants and fusion restaurants that also sell like wine as well if you're looking for it. And there honestly might be some traditional Korean restaurants that have like a variety of different alcohols, but it kind of depends if it's not like a pub style place.
Right.
But you can usually find like soju and beer at like most places. Beer is super, super popular, and Koreans also love like chicken and beer. In Korean, they call it chimak, which is like the portmanteau of the words like for chicken and beer in Korean. Right. So chicken and beer, like fried chicken and beer, is like a super popular combo, and like
sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it's like popular to have that together. So beer is super, super like easy to find, and you can also find like alcohol in convenience stores and things like that.
Okay then. Jumping back to the cultural thing and I've forgotten the name now.
Yeongdeungway.
The traditional inns or
the Hanok stay.
Yeah, the Hanok stay. So can you actually do a homestay with a Korean family, or would the Hanok be like a Hanok, so be the closest to a homestay?
No, you can do homestays. It's actually popular for like students. Or English teachers, so like teaching English abroad in Korea is also really popular. But yes, you could do homestays. There's like a Korean homestay website if people are interested in doing them. I think a lot of people also use social media these days to like find it. But there is like the Korea homestay website for that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. So you've mentioned it a few times, and I said we'll come back to it, and here we are. So as I say, most people would know off the hip, so to speak, South Korea known for its technology and electronics and everything else like that. Squid Games, of course. Korean barbecue, as in we have a big Korean community here in Toronto, as you're probably aware. Yeah. So getting Korean barbecue and Korean food is easy. And the magic word, or magic thing, I guess, K-pop. So I've seen K-pop bands, but I don't know what K-pop actually is, other than, is it just Korean manufactured pop music? Is that what it is?
That's basically what it is. Yeah, it's obviously K-pop stands for like Korean pop.
Is that what? I didn't know what K-pop was.
Yeah, K-pop.
Korean pop.
Yeah, it started with K-pop, K-dramas, and now it's like K-food. Like everything is K.
So it's Korean, whatever.
Korean pop music. So yeah, and it's there are like these production companies that are basically like, as you said, like I guess the word is manufacture. Yeah.
Well, that's what I use. I guess the equivalency would be something like Simon Cowell creating his boy bands, NSYNC, and all that. They were all, the Spice Girls. They were all created by a company and a producer. Yeah. Picked out music written for them. They, a lot of them went on to establish their own solid careers. No one bigger probably than Justin Timberlake came out of that, or a guy called Robbie Williams, I can't remember which band he was in. He's big in the UK and Australia. Anyway,
Yeah, I know him too. Yeah.
quite a lot of these people have talent, but they are originally put together as a
Yes.
product. And that's what it is originally. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I think maybe one of the main differences between like the way that K-pop is created it versus like a Western like pop groups. I mean, there are some examples like you just mentioned, but the main difference would be that most of these big production companies will have trainees come to their company. So sometimes they're scouted, but most of the time people will apply to be a trainee, and then they go through this like rigorous training of like
boot camp.
Yeah, but basically of like singing, dancing and performing and like all of this stuff. And then once they go to the trainee program, then they can debut, as they call it, into a group, or sometimes they do solo acts. It's much more common these days to see K-pop groups as opposed to solo acts. Usually solo acts stem from a group. So your example of Justin Timberlake and Sync, it would be sort of like that. But there are also, K-pop solo acts like IU or BoA. So yeah, basically, they train these trainees into becoming K-pop idols.
Yeah, I guess it's like anything. Like, if you look at One Direction and Sync, they are one of many boy bands that were out there, but they're the ones that just took off for whatever chemistry they had and whatnot.
It was like lightning strikes.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
the right timing.
Yeah, lightning strikes, and you're right. like because with BTS and Gangnam Style and Psy and all that, you then have Squid Games and other Korean cultural stuff hitting. You can relate to it to Australia in the 80s was sort of in the backwaters from a cultural point of view, but then we had America's Cup, Crocodile Dundee. It was just in excess. They all sort of happened at the same time, and again, to your point, it was lightning for the 80s, and it brought us fame and fortune and infamy, I guess. So from the K-pop point of view, when people are traveling, other than seeing it playing on TVs and stuff, is there any sort of interaction or immersion into the K-pop culture that people can get into if that's one of their driving desires?
I mean, I think attending a K-pop concert is super popular. So of course, like it's a lot easier to catch K-pop acts, and there are always different concerts that you can attend. There's also like the Dream concert that happens every year. So that's like a group of different idol acts, like K-pop acts that performs. You can also do something like that. K-pop dance class is really popular, so like learning the dance moves to your favorite. Yeah, learn it in Korea.
There's another good groups option for any dance groups out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's even things where you can like record your own K-pop album if you're if you're
right into it.
Yeah, I mean, karaoke is popular. They call it 노래방 in Korean. So that's also fun.
Okay, so the K-pop, we've discovered what it is. How you can get involved with it if you wish when you're in Korea. So just for the sake of time, I'm going to wrap up now. A couple other points. We mentioned the homestays, the traditional inns. So accommodation choices across the board in Korea. I guess they run everything from luxury all the way down to what we just discussed, homestays and budget. So you can find that. And again, I discovered, there are beach options. So there are like resort style places as well.
Yes.
So any type of accommodation, Korea's got it.
Yeah, and there's lots of great luxury accommodations too. Of course, there's many 5-star hotels that you can book. There's brands that people are probably very familiar with in North America, like Four Seasons or Intercontinental. But there's also some great Korean brands too. If you want to try something different, like the Shilla Seoul is such a beautiful place to go. For throwing out some examples, but luxury accommodations is. Yeah.
It's good. Okay, so again, Korea can offer all levels from 5 or 6 star these days down to homestays, and again, you can do it all in one style or you can combine. Just let us know here at Goway and we can put you in the 5-star to get going, into a homestay, into a 3-star down the track. If you're doing any hiking or biking or trekking, camping is an option in Korea, I'm sure.
Yeah, camping and glamping, of course, very popular. Yeah, if you want to do a little luxe, glamping is getting popular.
So on those sort of adventure outdoor, we touched on a lot of it, kayaking, etc., biking, trekking, climbing, so you can be adventurous. With all the mountains, I guess there's beautiful national parks, therefore, off the back of that, wildlife, birding, etc., options for Korea?
Yeah, actually for birding, like one of the most one of really great places to go is Suncheon Bay wetlands. There's known for some rare birds there, and there's many national parks. So I touched on Hallasan. One of the big ones is Soraksan National Park. So that's another major mountain. It's in Gangwon province. So Gangwon, for reference, is like the northeastern part of South Korea. So it's really well known for like long day hikes. Same as Hallasan. It's not quite as tall, but I would say it's like the same level of challenge. And there's also Chirisan, which is another really, really beautiful national park. Tons of like rolling mountains, and it's actually called like the Mountain of Life because there's so much like really beautiful plants and flowers and animals.
Okay, so Korea to me sounds like it's a very, or should be a very active destination with all the outdoor things you can do, the mountains, etc. What would be the perfect length of time to visit Korea, knowing that our American friends only generally get about 2 weeks holiday a year? Is 10 days enough to see most of South Korea?
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. I think 10 days, that's actually what I was going to say before you said that, is 10 days is pretty perfect. I mean, 2 weeks is also great, but I would say Seoul, you can't miss it. And the one thing I should probably touch on is shopping is really good in Korea. Prices are really good. And there's so many different things. There's so many like Korean brands that you can't get here. So it's really fun. K-beauty is a huge thing too. So a lot of people, when they go shopping, they got to hit up the K-beauty shops. And Myeongdong is one of the most popular areas in Seoul for that. But anyway, I would say like outdoor adventure and all that stuff is really good. But 10 days is. Okay,
10 days is, and Goway has all these sort of best of itineraries up on our website. Again, they're travel ideas. You can take them as they are on the website, or we can customize it based on your client's desires, budget and everything else. And as you've learned today, there are so many different variations and options in Korea. So again, I think, I've learned, I'll speak for myself on this one so much today. Again, I came into this little chat with Hillary not knowing really anything about Korea other than the sort of cliches, K-pop, electronics, cars, that type of thing, and a brief sort of understanding of the North-South conflict from way back when. But I see that South Korea, has so much to offer. I'm surprised at how much different things it offers, from, again, the beach to the mountains, to winter, to summer, to outdoor adventures and activities. Naturally, the culture, I think, is a given. So on that note, is there anything else you'd like to let our industry partners know about South Korea? Now, I understand we here at Goway have our Goway Pro Travel Academy. We do not at this stage have a module on South Korea, something Hillary and I can talk about. But in the interim, the tourism board does have a module or a program on Korea, which is for US and Canadian agents.
Yes, for both. Yeah.
You want to give us a quick rundown of what that would entail and where they can find that?
Sure. So it's travelagentacademy.com/Korea. There's a portal for US agents and a portal for Canadian agents. It's like a very easy and very basic course about all the basics about Korea, and it's designed for travel agents specifically. So, really fun and interactive course. It's mostly pictures too, but all the relevant information there. So it's easy to read and digest. It's not just like tons of pages. But like I said, I think that is one of the great things about Korea, is that it does have kind of something for everyone.
For sure,
The K-beauty lovers, you go shopping, you can do outdoor adventure. You can do like that rest and relaxation. If you want something a little bit more like, urban, modern, there's so many different museums and, different places and experiences to do. And there's great food and, I think a little bit of something for everybody.
Yeah, so check out our website. We've got some specials up for Korea as we promote and support Korea in next couple of months. Hillary and her website, or her organization here and in the US, have lots of other material outside the training module as well to support you. If anyone needs any specific information on South Korea or support, they can help you there. Of course, Goway and our destination specialists are the ones to help design your itinerary, to South Korea. We are sending actually lots of people. More and more are going to South Korea. It's becoming more and more popular within that Asian region. So please check it out. So I'd like to thank Hilary for her time today, for dropping in, talking to us, and thank everyone out there for listening as well. And we will talk to you soon. See ya.
Thanks, Don. Bye, everyone.